achieving, cause we believing. It's for certain, we put the work in. We ain't stopped just because it's hurting. Right before your eyes, so it's coming to no surprise. The takeover is televised. Over and over and over again. Make no mistake, we continue to win. Defeat never known, cause I will not lose. They wanna mimic my moves, but can't walk in my shoes.
Welcome to the Kelly Cardenas podcast, where attitude is everything and technology works until it doesn't. That's what my buddy Dennis and I said. I'm very, very excited. This is a long time coming, about 15 years that I have been asking to be able to have them. I haven't had a podcast for that long. For those of you who checked, we've had it just about 4 years, but I tell you, I have wanted to have this conversation for 15 years, over 15 years. This man brought me to the airport. Not because he wanted to, but because he had to. Someone else didn't want to take me to the airport, Tina Black and Brian Black. And so they asked this man to take me to the airport. And I had no idea that he was going to absolutely change my life. He was going to be my friend forever. And although we don't spend that much time together, he's constantly texting me, asking me what he could pray for me. He's never asking for anything. And he's always looking to tell the human story. I asked, what is the title that you would like me to say? And he said, just Dennis. He is an accomplished singer-songwriter, pastor, author. Please welcome to the show, Mr. Dennis Cook.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. And 2 clarifications. Former pastor, and I am not a singer. I'm just a songwriter. And so we're clearing that up now.
I like you clearing things up, Dennis. I mean, you are one of the most humble dudes that I have ever met. When we talked, you said that you wanted to be on the podcast. Why did you want, and why now, after I've been chasing your butt down for as long as the podcast has been on, 4 years, and everyone rocking, thank you. But I've been asking this dude, will you come? And you reached out to me the other day. Why is that?
I think for me, fear is a funny thing. Like, fear has this thing that it's really good at holding on to people, and it's not real good at letting go of people. And I think when I watch other people on television and film or podcasts, you look at them and goes, wow, those people really have something to say. And I guess I've not really felt that. Like, I don't feel like I have all these amazing things to say, but I don't even know what the questions are. So all I know is that I just like talking with you, man. And I love stories. You love stories. And I think now that I'm writing in Nashville a little bit and doing some of this stuff, I've really seen the value of stories, like firsthand. Like, it's one thing you've written, I've written books, but it's like when you're live in a room and someone is listening to you, because very few times in your book, you are actually in the room when someone's reading your story.
Yep.
But when you're a music and you're writing a song for somebody, it will always touch the artist before it will touch the audience. And you rarely will ever see what it does to the artist. You will only see what it does to the audience. And I get to see what the stories do before anybody sees it. And so I'm just trying to be a little bit braver, just telling stories out there. So, and I don't know if I'm brave, but I'm just trying to get braver.
Well, you are brave, man. If you haven't got his book, it's called one of the first ones. You did a couple of them, didn't you? The first one that you gave to me was Pouring Ketchup, and it was incredible because it was about everybody else, and it was about the little tiny stories that you can extract when you would go into a diner or you would go into a coffee shop and you would sit down with a person. Man, most people aren't willing to tell the human story. They want to tell this grandiose thing that trying to inspire, but you inspire because you actually help humans to tell their story. Like, where did that become so important for you, man?
I think I'm still answering the question where that becomes important, because I don't know if you go to bed one night, it's not important. You wake up the next morning, it's important. But I think it's pieces. And I was thinking about this week. I don't think I really paid attention to my life growing up, not quote the things I'm good at, but the things that brought me joy. Like, there's a difference, because you can be good at something, but you hate doing it. Like, but I've always, ever since a kid, you ask me about, hey, who was your ninth grade math teacher? I'll tell you, oh my gosh, this guy had a figure of a number two pencil, and one day he brought in this guy play guitar, and he played the Eagles song, and it was like he like I couldn't tell you, oh yeah, he was cool. Like, everything I see is in stories. Like, I'm not a real good yes or no, or this is right, that's wrong. Like, because it just seems like whenever you see the headlines in a person's life, I have found this to be true all over the world. The small print is always more interesting than the headlines. And I'm attracted to those kind of stories.
So Dennis, talk to us too, because when we met, Journey is you couldn't even dreamt up what
No.
like the situation now, right? And we kind of talked about this on the way to the airport. We talked about these things as far as just allowing God to use you. I knew you were gifted. I knew I was going to force you to be my friend for the rest of your life. And for all those of you out there, when I experienced these little stories, because this little story was a ride to the airport, and from a complete stranger we had never met. He picked me up in the morning, and over the course of an hour and a half, we forged a lifelong friendship. And now being able to see what he does and the circles that you're running in and things like that is so incredible. But I'm allowed to be around because I was around during those times. How important are friendships to you, and how does a person foster friendship? I mean, literally, we spent an hour and a half together, man. And
Yeah.
then is that the last time we seen each other?
No, I come to when you were in
Yes.
Hendersonville, drove over to
Yes.
see you were speaking at a salon in Hendersonville.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So talk to me about the relationships and the friendships, man, because like Dennis seems to have, I mean, you have the Midas touch in the friendship realm, man.
Yeah, I don't think I had that early on in life, because if you're always in a situation with another person in front of you, and you're always either privately or publicly trying to extract something from that person, you may get what you want out of that person. You may get, um, um, it's a great job. You may get a door open to a ride or to a video or a film, and you think that's actually the main thing, but you actually lost the greatest thing, was a relationship. You lost that because you traded a relationship for a job. You traded a relationship to meet someone higher up than that person was. You traded a relationship for money. You traded a relationship for status. You may have traded your family for status. You may have traded your family for a job. You may have traded all these things. And I think I'm 64 now, and I live in a very small apartment, and the size of an ashtray. And but gosh, I kind of like this season in life, even though, as I kind of, being honest, look at my other friends and seeing all the things maybe they have that I wish I had. But man, I just don't know what you could offer me these days in exchange for my peace. And when you deal with relationships with people, if you start them with, this is so simple, this is so simple. How was your day? And the key word is not how or day, it's your. Because what will happen is when people get into a coffee shop or a restaurant or downtown Broadway, I just got back from New York City, Times Square, talking with people on the street. Sometimes it's a mechanical thing. We'll say, hey, how was your day? Did you like the food? Was this good? How'd you like my song? It's mechanical. And so what happens is if you respond with 45 pages of cliff notes on the question they ask about you versus at least give it an opportunity to switch it back on them and say, cool, man, but how was your day? And if there's a pause, you sit back and you wait for the purpose of that pause. Who doesn't want to be around someone that's more concerned about you than maybe themselves? And so I don't look at friendship. Friendship's a hard word because you have two people defining the same word friendship, and never will they be the same. They're always going to be off. And so therefore you have one person fulfilling the word friendship that thinks he's back in 11th grade on the football field, and another one has went through 5 divorces. He's been an addict, and he's 2.5 days sober. What friendship looks like to those two people are different, but kindness always looks the same.
My mom would always say to me growing up that sometimes you needed Jesus with skin, right? And you needed people that were there with you, walking through, and not the perfect person, but the person that was going to be able to inspire you, not by, hey, I see that they're doing all exactly the same things that you should, but that they're actually living life. And this has been a thing, because I think a lot of times people think of a relationship with God as, hey, I accept Jesus in my heart, or I accept God into my heart, and then everything just starts to fall in line and I skip off into the future. That's not the story that I know. It's not the story you've lived. Am I correct?
Um, no, it's not. And it's not even fair. Like, like the word I want to say right now, and you can edit it, but it's bullshit. Like, that's what the word is, because it's not even real. Like, I just, it's like you tell these stories all the time and you say, oh, my mom said this and my pop said this. Next podcast, my mom said this and my pop said this. And you may be reading your book through Proverbs with enough yellow to paint straighted lines from Vegas to New York City on a piece of tar, right? You have this thing. And so you have this way that you see the world. But there are some people that have never met their dad. They've never met their mom. And if they did meet their dad, it was never good. It was never a good relationship. And so once it's the same principle as friendships. It's if you're only living through your lens, if you're only living through your lens, people will do one of two things. They will either lie to you or they will walk around you. Okay, so you get a couple, oh, this kind of things, and eventually, I'll tell you this. So I was in, and I'll get to right to your point because this is probably where you're going. Some years back, I had a bad breakdown in front of a lot of people, and it wasn't a little one. It was bad. Like it was like your goal in life is, oh my gosh, if I can live until my lunch, okay, just live until dinner, okay, just live to get. And you run that 6 years every day, and that's your pattern. You could care less about the Bible. You care less about prayer. You could care less about the church. All you care about is, at first, the first couple of years, like, I want to live, I want to live, I want to, like, let's go, we're going to take the hill. And eventually it just wears on you, man. And then you just start waking up on every day and you wish you didn't, and so I was asking to write. I wrote these lines, some lines, and someone asked me, like, they're like, holy crap, like, where'd those lines come from? These lines are good. And I said, what I gave you for free almost cost me my life. Do you want that? And they'll mostly say, no, I'm good, bro. Just thanks for the line. And I think that's it. And I think the very thing that human beings, listen to me, there's all kinds of sufferings. There's stupid stuff I do myself that bring on suffering. There's things that other people do to me that cause suffering. And then there's a tornado where some guy prays and it jumps over his house, but it lands flat on the neighbor's house. And he goes, God is good. He saved me tonight. And you didn't even look out your kitchen window and see the house flat next door. Suffering allows you to listen before you talk. Suffering, no matter where it comes from, it will put you in a room with some of the most powerful people in the world, but you didn't get there to take a selfie. You got there to listen to the opposite side of fame, the opposite side of the opposite side. And so, I don't know. So does it suck? Yeah, it sucks. And I was with an artist the other day, and we were sitting at Starbucks just talking, and he had this great question. I've been asked 100 times. He said, if you could go back and extract that 6 years from your life, and you could go from your happy, joyous self before the break and your whatever it is after the break, and you could lose all this, would you do it? And my response was, I've dated that question, but I ain't ready to marry it yet. meaning suffering causes, when you hurt, your wife hurts. When you hurt, your kids hurt. When you hurt, your audience hurt. Now, you can only manipulate your podcast and your life to a certain degree, but somebody's going to catch you in an elevator and they're going to get the real you, right? Now, that brings a choice to you. What do you do when you are spotted, right? In my really bad time, and I'll get out of this. Like, there's this guy asked me to go to Chinese food for him, and he knew I was jacked up, man. He knew I was just gone, man. Like, and he said, "You want to get Chinese food?" I goes, "Yeah." So we met outside the mall, and we're walking in between the two doors. Oh, I feel bad. I apologize to this guy later. He said, "I'll buy," and I'm like, "Okay, cool." And here's what he did. He started whistling. I'm like, what the hell's that? What? You can't whistle. I literally put my fist in a ball. I almost knocked this kind, younger than me. He probably would have smoked me now that I think about, wow, that didn't even think about it then. I almost punched him right in his face because his joy was insulting me. It was like, how dare you be happy in the presence of my ashes, right? I'm dying here in these ashes, and you're happy? Like, you can't be happy. And so, but here's what he did. He knew it. We got inside to the Chinese restaurant, and we're sitting there, and he buys me my Chinese. We're in the mall. It is 57 minutes, shy of an hour. We're sitting there. The cat didn't say one word. And then he speaks, and he goes, Dennis, I will stay here all day with you and say nothing until you tell me dinner's over. It is one of the most significant things someone has ever done for me in my darkness, to have the courage to say nothing. And very few people these days have the courage to say nothing, because they make the false assumption, if I tell them how great my world is and somehow it's going to leak on them and they're going to have a great world. It doesn't. They're just, I don't know.
Well, it's profound what Dennis was just talking about, and it's one of those things where I think we all go through. If you haven't gone through it, you probably will at some point, where um, highlight reels of other people's lives, and you compare it to yours, and you almost not get mad, but you kind of get down and sad. And I've had these things happen, especially recently, looking at somebody else's, again, looking at their highlight and then comparing it to my reality. And, my friend Dennis, this guy is an unbelievable human being. Um, it's been, I think 15, no, it's been longer than that. Probably about 17 years that we've been friends. And it's amazing because there's never been a time where I've spent time with Dennis that it has not been genuine. And you see his passion, you see his heart, you see who he is. And I hope you can understand and feel just how heartfelt that guy is. Um, I'm gonna see. I think we lost him for a second, but I believe he'll be right back. Um, I believe so. Um, but I think one of the cool things is, and I was asking him about the Jesus with skin part, is because I think a lot of times people will look at a certain situation, or they'll hear advice, or they'll hear these things, and they think that a person's situation is perfect. And I had a guy actually tell me that he stopped listening to the podcast and he stopped watching me on social. And the reason why, he said, because I don't relate. I don't relate to your joy. And it was amazing to me. Um, Let me bring Dennis back. There you go, Dennis. You're back.
I lost you for a minute, so I didn't
That's
hear
okay.
anything
That's
for the
okay.
last
So
minute.
what
But
I
anyways,
what I
go ahead.
was what I was saying is there was a guy on social. Um, uh, he actually hit me in person. I was at a convention and he came up to me and said, "I can't listen to you anymore." And I said, "Why?" He said, "I tuned out." He said, "Because you're always happy, and things are going well in your life, and it's not going well in my life. So I don't want to listen to you anymore." And when I stopped him, like you were saying, someone's going to catch you in the elevator. I grabbed him and I said, "Man, I just want to let you know, dude, like not everything goes in my favor, but I do play a game that's called, Kelly's rules. And in Kelly's rules, I just make up the fact that, I like it. And it doesn't mean that the situations, when I talk about my mom or my papa or my pops or anything like that, um, there was a lot of craziness that happened during those times. I choose to remember the great times. But what I was telling the audience just a second ago too, Dennis, is that it's funny that you say it, because I've been going through those things. I've been watching people, and I've been like, I've been in a different season in my life, and looking and saying, like, man, did I cause someone to feel this way when I was shouting out all the rest of the stuff, when I was shouting out the joy? So I want you to go back. I mean, you were right in the midst of the, uh,
Yes. Well,
you
I
know,
think I think it was very unfair of me. This it. It was very unfair of me being mad at someone for having the very thing I was praying for. Like, it's unfair. And so what happens is, I have just found, like, people tease me a bit here in Nashville, like, you just suck at writing happy songs. I'm going, oh, thank you very much. You just complimented me. Thank you. Like, so, but I think there's this thing where it's like this. I don't think it's suffering, joy, blocking the camera's view. I think it, I think it moves like a teeter-totter when you were a kid. And it just, like, let me tell you this story. What happened with me and my wife last Thursday night. Boom. And then 7 minutes later, my son and I were walking from the car from his baseball game, and my son said, boom, it's it's both. And I think you can't just do suffering, because then it's eventually people will walk around that, right? So the very thing people will walk around joy, if it's just always suffering, and I get there's a season of intenseness where you just can't get out. I was there. But I think for those, and unfortunately some people have to go through, some people, their plate, their china gets chipped earlier than others.
Mm.
And so you have this beautiful piece of fine china, and you go, oh, well, what happened to that? Oh, never mind, right? And then you have people that can, it just seems like they went through their life completely and they've never taken a right blow by the devil, right? Or themselves or others, whatever it may be. So I think at my age, at 64, I'm just conscious. So you said you had this principle you had. I've been doing this for almost 30 years. Whenever I see someone walk in the room, I pretend they have the word fragile tattooed on their forehead. And when you see that, no matter how they respond, joy or suffering, it doesn't matter. Fragile just means there are people that are dying because of too much joy. Like, like,
Do you think it's too much joy, or would you say it's too much happiness?
well, yeah, good to say. I guess I will say this. It's like, thank you for the distinction. What I mean by that is sometimes the good can take out a man faster than the bad.
Makes sense.
That's what I mean. That, whatever it is. So I'm not, it has nothing to do with goals and going after it. It just means, Derrick Henry of our times, just retired. Yeah, he just
He
retired.
retired
He did. Well,
today.
he had a, and he thanked the whole team, yesterday, I think. Um, and he thanked the whole team. So that
I
they
don't know
assume,
if did he say I
okay,
retired, Dennis? Because
I don't,
I'm fact checking you on this, bro.
no, please,
I,
please, please. But I will say this at the I will say this at the end of the game, thank you. He grabbed a mic and he went through this list of thanking people.
yeah,
This has been the best 8 years. I think this, I think this. But what was beautiful was the list. I would like to thank the cooks and the people that cleaned the floor. I would
yeah.
like to thank I would like to thank the person that did this. And it was like, it was the most beautiful thing. And whether he did or didn't, to grab the mic in front of thousands of people and think this guy has everything. But I think there's a consciousness of when a person goes through something, I think you have a greater consciousness to those around you. And I don't know. I do. Yeah.
Well, you have that consciousness, and you display it. You told me about a time when you were at a songwrite, and you noticed a girl, and she was struggling, and then you talked to her about about the lyrics, because you had written, and this was one that I know you don't like to talk about it, but I think it's the only reason why I'm using it is because the context of the story itself, not the fact that it went viral, not the fact that it went, I mean, ape on the internet and things like that, and you always shun it. You always like, that's what I love about you, my brother, is like you'll just shun it, and I can even see you physically uncomfortable right now when I even mention it. But I'm not mentioning the viral part of it. I'm mentioning the part of the fact of how you wrote and how you encouraged this young lady, and how you drew that out in her, and how you saw her, which caused the ancillary part of it, caused the amazing part. But the world just sees the viral part. They don't see the other part. Can you talk a little bit about that story and share that story? Because it was unbelievable to me.
Well, I think there's several of them, but um, in as far as short stories with people, but I think I think at least the first one was a song called "Honest." We did, and so I write with a group called Songhouse here in Nashville. That was started by again Tyler Ward and Jacob Fox. They started this thing, and we come in early in the process. They draw names out of a hat. 4 people, kind of strangers, get put in a room, and we got 30 minutes to write a hook. Come out, film it. If it goes great, then we do the whole song. but we were in the right, and this doesn't always happen, but it was 4 people. There was this girl named Kendall, there was a guy named Dorian, and a girl named CJ, and myself. We're all in the room, and we're just writing. We got this thing, and it's and then it happened. Like, we forgot we were in a room. We forgot we were writing a song, and Dorian said something. Then CJ said something, and the girl that was against Kendall said something, and then I said something. And the way I describe this, Kelly, it was a 4-way collision, and there was no stop sign, and all 4 of us just came in, boom, and it just we we never wrote it to go viral. We never wrote it to be a hit. Like, we wrote it because that's where life was in our lives on a Saturday. It was a Saturday, and it's changed her life. It's changed all of our lives, only because we didn't. This goes back to the artist thing. It's, if you write only to try to get a hit, you may start borrowing somebody else's punchline. But if you write, as Rick Rubin says, if you write as though it's coming from last night's diary, okay, you may not like my song that I wrote last week, but it's my diary. Like, I'm showing you what I felt like. I'm showing you. Diaries are not about facts. They're about truth.
Mm.
And different. And I don't know. I sit there, and I'll go backwards a minute, Kelly. Like, I'm sitting there in that dark season, laying on a couch under an Afghan that someone made me at the church. And this is it. I'm laying on the couch, and it's like, I think it's over. It's absolutely, my life is over. It doesn't matter. It's just like, my couch turned out to be a coffin, and it just lay in it every day. I heard my young daughter, about 7 at the time, we had wooden floors, and she jumped on top of me. And I'm like, get off me. Don't jump. And I took the blankets and I covered my face so she couldn't see me. And I have them as tight as I could around my face. Like, don't. She goes, Dad, Dad. And I'm like, no. Like, I didn't want her to see me like that, right? And she goes, but I made you something. And I went, oh. Kelly, I took the blankets and I pulled it over, and I'm just looking. And it was a note. And it said this: Dad, you rock. At my lowest moment, 3 words. And now I'm 64 and get to sit with these beautiful people that are using couches for coffins, and I get to write, you rock. And they can hold it until someday they believe it. And I don't know. I just think that's the power of writing, right? Is that, like, people say there's no such thing as a new story. Fair. But no one has ever talked about last Thursday at 3 a.m. like I have. I can't,
Mm.
because it's my diary. It's not yours. It's my diary. So, like, and so, like, I wake up every day and I feel like I have thousands, 300 thousands of stories in my belly, and they all have cardboard signs screaming, tell my story, with blowhorns. And all of a sudden you write one, honest, or we wrote one about my mom and a girl's, Rebecca's dad, about losing with cancer at 50. And I know this person, and we wrote a song called Photocopy, and this journal. We just wrote. And if you like it, cool. But if you don't, I don't know what to do with that, because I don't know. So I've made
Dennis,
peace.
Dennis,
But
what about the young lady with you wrote one about a disorder, about a eating disorder?
Yeah. Um, so, yeah, yeah. So she came forward with so exactly that's out there. So yeah, it's a there's a girl that writes within this song house called Emmy, and I was gonna write with her and another guy, and we're writing, and I had this story idea, and it doesn't make me look good at all, Kelly, but this is the truth of the way it started. Is I a few years back, Heidi and I were not doing well financially, and I looked at my refrigerator, and there was nothing but condiments. But I do like condiments. I love barbecue sauce, ketchup. Yeah, I wrote a book yet. So I was just looked at my refrigerator, and I don't know why I got really angry at God. Like I'm like, this isn't fair. I'm out there trying to help the world, and da, 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 we don't even have any food, da, 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 and all this stuff. And so I took everything out of the refrigerator. This is crazy. I went to my bathroom and I grabbed a scale and I put it in the bottom of the refrigerator. I looked to my right and there was a Diet Coke, and I set the Diet Coke on top, and I just was like, wow, people got it worse off than me. And then I said, there are some people that can't eat 4 peas because they think they'll be 400 pounds with an eating disorder. But I kept that private. And then one day after the write, I talked to Emmy and I said, Emmy, I got this great song for you. And I was so excited. And I shared the picture um, of the refrigerator and the scale and the Coke. And she just started crying. She goes, I can't, Dennis. I can't. And I goes, why? She goes, I'm in therapy for that. And I goes, what? Like, there's no way. Not you. Like, you can't. Like, this whole thing, right? And so I pulled away as to not. And then about 3, 4, 5 months later, her and her boyfriend were in a coffee shop I was at. And he goes, Dennis, we got to get a song for Emmy. And I goes, I gave her one. And he goes, what? And we went to the studio that day and we wrote it. And it was one of the hardest things she ever done. It was just, it was just hard. It's hard, man. Like if you bury this stuff for decades and someone sneaks into your room and peeks at your journal, and she did it, and we put it out there in the world, and the world responded, and there were the stories that she got from having the courage to tell the story. And yeah, and so she's an amazing writer, person, and I don't know, man, that one was a little bit different, but I think that's why it did so good, is because, gosh, we're just all good liars. We're just all good liars. Just
So
good
when you
liars.
when you bury the pain, it seems like it creates a better story, right? So let's talk about the Detroit Lions then, because you've buried that for a long, long time, and that's a hell of a story right there, man. Like that's some pain, but you're about. I mean, you guys won the division. How
Yeah,
happy are you? I know you're a Michigan guy,
yeah.
University of Michigan, and you're Lions. Are you going to write a
That's,
song about that pain?
you know what's funny when you said that, because I was in a coffee shop about 3 days ago, and I took a different angle on your question here. Um, I was thinking about how this coach, Dan Campbell, can go, what, 0-16, and there was not a revolt. Like, they kept him, like, you went through Brett, we're going to take the world, we're going to do all these things, right? 0-16, comes back the next year, does a little bit better, and then you have this year, and you have this storyline. Like, and chances are they'll never ever read it, Kelly, but I wrote a letter to the Detroit Lions. And I talked about things that are better than sports. And it's a comeback, and it's character, and those things. And I wrote this letter to the Detroit. It took me, this is how slow of a writer I am. It took me probably 4 hours to write 2 paragraphs. But I wanted every single word in that thing to matter, to let these people, whoever reads it, it could be a 20-year-old, it doesn't matter to me. When someone goes 0-16 and your team, those friends that surround you don't revolt, you got something special. You got something. So I look at it from that way. Yeah, I'm excited about it, but I just wrote them and just said, who doesn't want that kind of friend, Kelly, to go back to your original question? Like you're lying on your bathroom floor at 2 a.m. You get the courage to tell it. And your friends don't even blink. They don't even blink. They go, oh, let's go to the Cracker Barrel together. I just told you everything, and they didn't even blink. And I don't know. I was just so motivated and moved by that.
Well, we're gonna have to get you. We're gonna have to get you to write the theme song for them, Dennis. The reason why I started the podcast is because my two kids. I
yeah,
don't. You didn't get to meet them. It's Maddox and McKenna, and you've
no.
heard their names. But what advice would Uncle Dennis have for Maddox and McKenna? And if he could use both their names, it would be awesome, man.
Maddox, McKenna, I could almost guarantee there's nights that you go in your bedroom, you shut the door, and you feel like nobody understands who you are, what hurts you, what brings you joy. Nobody understands what you're going through, including your mom and your dad. Don't know. But I would say this. There are people out in the world that do want to know. And there's people out in the world that do care. And just because you come across one person that doesn't care, doesn't mean right around the corner there's 10 who do. And so I would just encourage you both to know that you are loved, even on the days you're lying in bed with a blanket over your head, feeling like nobody sees you. You rock.
Dennis, it has been an absolute pleasure, man. And for those of you out there, like he didn't want me to do an intro on him, and he doesn't want you to know that he's a massive, massive songwriter there in Nashville. Seriously,
Yeah.
he is, and that's not why I love him. I love him because he's my friend. I love you, Dennis, because you're my friend. Like that ride to the airport, I had no idea would really impact my life in such an incredible way. But I am going to ask every single listener, I want you guys to all go check out Dennis Cook because it's going to freak you out. Like when you see the music that he's written and you see where it's gone and you see the impact that he's having on people, he's such a humble guy. We get the conversation of Dennis telling human stories, but everybody right now wants Dennis on their podcast. I got him first. This is an exclusive, but I get him first not to talk about all the things that he's done, but to talk about the person who he is. And Dennis, you constantly show it. I absolutely love you. For those of you, I'm going to ask for a selfish prayer tonight. I'm taking my daughter here in a minute. I'm taking her to her audition for her play. And what I want anybody out there listening, I want you guys all to pray that my daughter gets the part. Now, some people are like, it's God's will. Well, today, God, I want it to be like me and you together, both of our will together, because I want my little 15-year-old daughter to get a part in Catch Me If You Can at Carlsbad High School. Make sure that you pray for that. Dennis, you have been unbelievable, man. But I am going to ask you for one thing. Another episode.
Dang you.
I love you. I love you, Uncle Dennis. He shook his head. For those of you who can't see him, he shook his head, said yes. So I take that as a yes. But Dennis, you're incredible. I love you so much, man. And
Love you too.
you know, I love my texts, and I get texts from this guy all the time just asking me, what can I pray for you? Or I'm praying for you, and it's always hitting at the right time. You're listening to people and lifting people up.
I want to ask you one question before we
Yeah.
go. And you can give me the short answer in this, but, and I know you do this well. You do this well. When you're speaking and you speak all over the world, you speak all over the world, and you see something, you feel something, how is it with all you have going on, you're still able to carry some of the people's stories that are pretty dang heavy, man, and yet, man, you're staying close and you carry those. Does that weigh on you sometimes?
I just feel like I've been very fortunate. I have friends like you, and I have friends that have always just protected me. And I can't ever take any of that credit, but I have people that shower me with encouragement. Um, I have struggled in the last couple of years because my number one encourager, my pops, isn't here anymore. And you
Yeah.
know, I look around. A lot of times, I'll do something, or I'll hear their story, and I'll take it with me. Um,
Did you know it back then, the influence that your pops would have on you now?
no,
Did you know it?
I didn't. I mean, he would tell me, "You have no idea, son. You have no
Yeah.
idea how much I love you." He said, "One day you'll realize. One day you'll look at Maddox and you'll realize. You'll look at McKenna." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah, whatever, Pop. You keep saying the same stuff. So just
Yeah.
let me be." And he would frustrate the hell out of me.
Yeah.
And but like I said, Dennis, I mean, I've just been so fortunate. Um, but I get down, man. Like, you know, I get down. Um, and I call my brother and I look for that encouragement from my brother.
Yeah.
Um, and I can't put that weight on him though. I can't put the
Yeah.
weight on him, but I look for the encouragement from my brother. I look for it from my wife. I look for it from every single person. And God keeps letting me know there's only one place that it'll come from, and it'll be me. But also, what my brother said is, I was, uh, I was like, man, it feels like I'm trying these things, and you know, I had an encourager, and my pops would always just be like, "Yo, you can do it, all this stuff." And my brother said, "Do you think that Michael Jordan looked around after he made a free throw in practice and wanted someone to cheer?"
Mm. Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah. No, I appreciate you saying that, because that you kind of tiptoed around, but this is hard, man. Like, it's hard. This is hard when you feel like you're carrying this darkness around, and you walk in a room and like you bring the cloud to the room. And like, at least for me, like, I didn't want to bring that in the room. Like, I didn't. And so you start to hide, and maybe that's why I'm not doing podcast. Like, it's easier to hide as we started this thing, but it's like, again, all the people that sit in your audience who lost someone, you know, you know, like, you know, and when you get this close to them, they know, you know. And I guess, even though I know this is your job, I just want to encourage you, man, because the older people get, the older people get, sometimes the less people they have. And I've watched you personally stand in rooms and honor people with your truth, the joy and the suffering. And so Love you.
I
That's
love
it.
you too, man. I love you too. You're
Yes.
unbelievable. I'm pray for my daughter,
Yeah.
so she get the part. And Dennis, you're coming on again, but you're officially off the hot seat.
Okay. Thanks.